Hi, I'm Andy Gears and I'm leading a team building The Serpent and the Seed, a beautiful mobile adventure game coming soon to an app store near you. As long as I can remember, I've had two great loves, Jesus and video games, especially story-driven games with a sense of humour, like Monkey Island or Day of the Tentacle. Now, today is a very special anniversary because exactly 20 years ago, I published a blog post about an idea I'd had to bring those two loves together. What if I could make an adventure game in the style of Monkey Island, but exploring stories from the Bible? The Bible?
Did you say
The Bible? Now, if you're not used to reading the Bible, maybe you think of it as just a long list of rules and genealogies, a dusty old book that's completely irrelevant. Why would anyone want to play a video game based on that? But the thing I was waking up to as a 21-year-old was just how exciting the Bible could be. It's got answers to all those big questions. What am I here for? What's life all about? And it's chock full of epic stories about love, hate, betrayal, kings, conquests, priorities, desires, sacrifice, miracles. And if the things that it says about Jesus are true, then it changes everything, enough that it's well worth setting aside the time to see if there could be any truth to it. Anyway, I thought that some kind of adventure game could be a great way of getting people into these Bible stories, to explore what it's all about in a fun and engaging way, not taking itself too seriously, but whilst also being faithful to the Bible. So step one, I had to pick a Bible story. I originally got the idea while studying the book of Ruth. It's a really short story, just 4 chapters long, but it's packed full of great truths about the character of God. But I ruled it out because I thought it was just a bit too obscure for a first game. Then I thought about David and Goliath. That's a classic story that everyone's heard of. But then I decided that was probably too far the other way. Everyone would be comparing my game to all of these other versions of the same story. So eventually I settled on the passage just before David and Goliath, 1 Samuel 8-12, where Saul becomes king. That left space for me to tackle the big one as a sequel. It also had some really nice game-like properties. There was a quest to find some missing donkeys, followed by a quest to find a missing king, all against the backdrop of some quirky characters. It seemed perfect. So step 2, I had to decide what would actually happen in the game. I spent basically years trying to work out what the player would actually do in the game, what the different scenes in the game should be, writing puzzles and so on. What I discovered quite quickly was that when you think about it, so many of the puzzles in Monkey Island basically revolve around tricking people, stealing things, messing things up, which is fine when you're trying to be a pirate, but not so great when you're trying to teach people the Bible. And trying to think of puzzles that felt equally satisfying to solve, but which were a bit more moral, shall we say, took a long time. I used to go to McDonald's before work once a week and get my notebook out over a McMuffin breakfast. I accumulated so many of these mugs, so I think that must date it to around 2008, 2009. I also had a pretty good thing going with some mates for a while in 2010, where we'd meet up for dinner once a month, have a glass of red wine and try and figure out the next lot of puzzles. Good times. Step 3, I had to decide on my values. Especially with a project of this kind, it's really important that early on you decide what's important to you and establish a set of principles. So alongside developing the game itself, I spent a lot of time blogging about my convictions, both about how you should understand and communicate the Bible and about what that means for turning it into a video game. And I think a lot of this early work has served me in good stead, even a decade or so later, as all of these principles established early on still inform everything I've done with the Serpent and the Seed. And you can see my David and Goliath video to find out more about that. Step 4, I spent a lot of time and money on totally the wrong things. As I look back, I cringe when I think how many countless hours I spent back at the start of this project trying to build my own game engine. I mean, to give myself credit, back in 2005 there weren't a lot of decent cross-platform engines that were free to use. But I suspect if I'd been determined, then I could have found something. Once I made the leap to Unity, things started to come together a lot more quickly. I also wasted a lot of time and money trying to figure out what everything should look like, because to be honest, it was just a lot more exciting than what I should have been working on. So someone helped me create character concepts, characters like Saul and the prophet Samuel and the evil King Nahash. And somebody else did a bunch of environment concepts. All that was missing was any kind of prototype to see if the ideas we had were actually any fun. I kept trying to jump into building a final quality product, but I just didn't have the skills or the team to make that possible. And there's a few embarrassing photos from this period. I think this is the last remaining evidence of a weird promo video I used to have on my website of a 3D cowboy thing. What on earth was I thinking? So all of that led to step 5, despair. By around 2011, I'll be honest, the game just began to fall by the wayside. I'd put so much energy into it and it just didn't feel like I had very much game to show for it. It felt like any extra time I put into it was just time wasted. And meanwhile, my new project Prayer was taking off like a rocket, and it felt like it was far more worthwhile putting my limited free time into that. And yet, in that same year, a new seed was planted. A game came out on the iPad, which itself was brand new. It was a quirky musical adventure game called Super Brothers Sword and Sorcery EP. It was a strange little game, changing with the real-life phases of the moon. But more than anything, what stood out about the game was its very distinctive tone and feel. I loved the juxtaposition of a certain weightiness and gravitas, but in a way that definitely didn't take itself too seriously. And at times, the script was downright silly. So step 6, a new idea. I didn't think any more of it until 2015, when Kevin DeYoung released a children's Bible called The Biggest Story. And one particular page leapt out at me, this image of Abraham heading off on a journey to the promised land. Visually, it reminded me so much of Sword and Sorcery. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool to make a game like Sword and Sorcery, but exploring the big story of the Bible? But it would be 2020 before that idea ever went anywhere, when I started work on what would become The Serpent and the Seed. I've told the story of this game in another video recently, but in essence, it's an attempt to capture some of that same tone and feel of Sword and Sorcery, but exploring the big story of the Bible. You begin in the Garden of Eden, feeling some of that sense of wonder at this amazing world. But then as Adam and Eve are kicked out of the garden, this incredible otherworldly song by Paul Bishop Hooper starts up. You really feel the heartache of what's been torn away from you. So here I am, it's January 2025, it's exactly 20 years to the day since that first blog post was published, and it is amazing to see how far The Serpent and the Seed has come. We've just shared a beta version of Act 1 with around 200 people over Christmas. The final bits of artwork are being drawn, the last bits of music have been written. And by the way, it's such a wonderful tribute to the game's origins that we even managed to get Jim Guthrie, the composer of Sword and Sorcery, to write a track for our little snake minigame. After this epic journey over 2 decades, it's amazing to see it finally coming to reality. So what made the difference this time around? Well, briefly, here's 5 quick lessons that have helped me finally get this game made. Number 1, simplify, simplify, simplify. Now this might be a bit rich coming from a guy who's decided to make a game about the whole Bible from Genesis to Revelation. But the smaller the scope you can make your project, the more likely you are to finish it. And that includes not trying to make your own game engine if what you really want to do is make a game. We've already managed to streamline the game from 5 acts to 4. We've managed to cut out even more content beyond that. Number 2, don't worry about what it looks like. Focus on finding the fun. I spent so much time and energy trying to find a 3D modeler, when if I put even a fraction of that energy into just getting on and prototyping it, I probably could have had the whole game scoped out before running out of energy and getting burnt out. Number 3, find ways to unblock the blockers. So that second point is just an example of a bigger principle. Rather than feeling stuck like I couldn't make progress without finding those team members, try and figure out what you could get on with. I could have just used some programmer art, some stock models off the internet, just to figure out what you can do to keep going, maintain that momentum. In turn, it would have really kind of encouraged me, built confidence in the project, and actually that would have then helped attract other team members to the project too. Number 4, at some point you do just need to get your head down and crack on. At some point you've got to stop talking about making a game and actually just get on and make the game. With The Serpent and the Seed, that key moment for me was when I sat down with a notebook for an afternoon and tried to sketch out a kind of structure for a game. And by the end of the afternoon, I had one. And then you just do the next thing after that and the next thing after that. Number 5, surround yourself with the right people. Now, I know this might be a bit contradictory with some of those earlier points, but I can't deny that at the end of the day, what allowed me to get The Serpent and the Seed made when I couldn't make that other game was having this amazing team around me. People like Dan Gould, who helped me figure out what you actually do in the game. It shortcutted years of the process from the earlier attempt. Having people around you with the skills that you lack is an absolute game changer, literally. I know I'm biased, but I am so delighted with how The Serpent and the Seed is turning out. I think it looks and sounds gorgeous. I think it's got a really fun atmosphere, and it's certainly been worth the 20-year wait as far as I'm concerned. And do stay tuned to see the amazing cake my wife baked to celebrate the occasion. Here's some of the comments we've had so far from people who've played the game recently.
I loved it. The music, the graphics, the word, the colors, the content, and most of all, the word of God that is on it. It's such an amazing tool, such a great idea. We need more Christian video game. Please, we need more, guys, because this is so engaging for this generation of the young people that love play video games. Such a cool idea. So well done.
First word that came to mind when I was playing the game was beautiful. The music, the graphics, the way that the biblical story was presented. It was all wonderful, and it put a smile on my face playing.
So I hope you can agree that the potential for this project is huge. You could argue we've been brewing it for 20 years, but there is still one more vital step, and this is where you come in. Step 7, we're going to need to market the game. The whole project is pointless unless people hear about it and decide to play it. And that means we're going to need to do some marketing. We've got a whole bunch of different conferences we'd like to exhibit the game at, but doing that isn't cheap and comes with a lot of upfront costs, bills that need paying now. And of course, we'd love to get some beautiful trailer videos made and be pushing those on social media. And again, that's going to cost money. So could you consider donating to Discipleship Tech? We're a registered UK charity, so if you're a taxpayer here and can gift aid your donations, then we can claim an extra 25% on top of every donation you make from the government. Literally, the more money we raise, the more people we can reach. It's as simple as that. And if you're not already, make sure you sign up to our mailing list so that you'll be the first to hear when it's live. And please do like this video and subscribe to the channel. And as promised, here's the amazing cake that my wife made to celebrate this amazing 20-year anniversary. It's been a long old journey, but I'm so excited for this year and I cannot wait to see what happens in the coming months. Thanks for following along.